is a typical pathology of the United States. Well, I mean, this is a typical pathology of the United States, to be honest. If you have something that they want, if you have something that they need, you and they dehumanize you. You're not just an enemy to them, you're not even human. They need you to not be human so that they can morally justify to themselves all of the cruelty and the brutality that they will employ against you to exploit you, to use you, and to pillage whatever you have that they want. Because they want to be able to enslave and abuse you in good conscience. The most obvious example, of course, is slavery. But of course, that was just one, maybe the most acute and the most grotesque form of dehumanization that they did. But this is just their way. You know, from the enslaved Africans, they wanted their labor and they wanted the wealth that was produced by their labor. Now, other nations had slaves. The Muslims had slaves too, but no one else in history, no one else in the world assigned slaves subhuman status. As I've talked about before, slaves in the Muslim world could rise to an even higher socioeconomic status than their masters. In the Muslim world, the slave and the owner were brothers. But in America, the slave was considered a beast of burden, and the owner of the slave was a sadistic beast master. Now, they needed it to be this way. They needed it to be this way because fundamentally, they do not know how or do not believe in peaceful, equitable transactions. They don't believe in mutual benefit. Mutual benefit to them represents some kind of loss for them. They don't believe in harmonious relations, fair transactions, fair exchange, and all of that. They believe in conquest. America was built on stolen land and sustained by stolen labor. And it has a long-standing habit, a tradition of dehumanizing those who possess what it desires. So for the African slaves, they were dehumanized for their labor, for the sweat and tears that built the foundation of a nation claiming freedom for all. But they had to dehumanize them in order to make that claim, you see, because they wanted to be able to pretend that they were good, righteous, enlightened people who believed that all men are created equal. But they also wanted to continue treating African slaves as less than human, as less than equal. So they had to invent this idea that, well, they're not fully human, so therefore it doesn't count. It wasn't a violation of their principles to treat beasts of burden as unequal. By dehumanizing them, they were able to convince themselves that chattel slavery didn't contradict with their claims of virtue. Or you can look at the Native Americans. The indigenous inhabitants of that land for centuries were dehumanized for the richness beneath their feet, for the land. They were pushed to the margins. Their cultures were erased. The lands that they held sacred were violated, all for America's insatiable, ruthless hunger for more, for expansion, for dominance. They don't understand the idea of coexistence, of peace and harmony. They believe in the philosophy of the last man standing. That's their approach to the world. First within what's now the territorial United States, and then the entire Western Hemisphere, and then to the whole planet. This is what they applied. Mexico, Central America, South America. You see, the Latin Americans, their natural resources were sought, and so their sovereignty was trampled upon. America's pursuit of what it desires has always been characterized by exploitation, domination, and subjugation. For all their talk about capitalism and the market, you know, free exchange and so on, for all their talk about this, it's not what they practice, and it's not what they fundamentally believe.
Hi,
Hello.
Michael.
Hi. How's it going, Steven?
Right on, yeah.
It's going okay. We're all a little under the weather. So we're going to try to get through this today so we could go take a nap and rejuvenate our bodies. So welcome everybody to the Noteworthy Podcast. I am Abby Dew, as my father would affectionately call me. And I'm here with our fellow co-hosts, Michael and Steven.
Hello.
What have you guys been up to?
Well, actually, last night, I don't know if you've seen this movie. I watched a pretty good movie. It's called A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich. You seen that?
Heard about it.
It's a good movie.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Okay,
a
I'll look
little
it
bit
up.
of viewer discretion. It's got drug use by young youth, kids, whatever. But it's good. Unlike the movies of today or whatever, where it's just kind of flashy with no plot or subtext, or whatever. There's actual story to this movie that's compelling. So, but anyway, how was your week?
It was good. I went to Alexandria, Louisiana for my leadership program. Learned a lot from there. We talked a lot about housing and how public policy affects the homeless and the soon to be homeless because of the policies. So that was very enlightening. And actually, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to the state capitol. There's a discussion about crime in the state, and after that, it's an all-day event. There's a council meeting in my zip code about crime, specifically in the zip code. So I'm really excited to go to that. So I'm trying to start my research now, so I'll be prepared when the time arises.
Cool.
Other than that, what are we talking about today?
Today, well, I called the stream the title "Bandwagons of Aid for Budget Black Holes." So I hope that gives people a bit of a hint about what the topic would be. We got crazy amounts of foreign aid going all over the place, and then everyone knows how a lot of that aid's a little bit like, is that actually going where we think it's going? And then you got all these debt problems in the West, and it's like we got budget problems we got to take care of, but all the money's going who knows where. So maybe we need
to a big washing machine.
Yeah.
It's going to a big washing machine. Getting laundered.
Yeah. And if you think it doesn't affect you, whatever, what planet are you living on? Welcome. We got a couple people in the chat here, a few new names. Watts and
let's go.
Lynette.
Hello, Lynette. Yeah, those are 2 new names. So welcome.
I'm pretty sure that you cannot take too much vitamin D, maybe, but I've been trying, and so far all good. Fighting the good fight. Sleep is number one.
We were just talking about that. We're taking vitamin C, and you can't take over, what is it, Stephen? 3,000 milligrams a day?
Yeah, I think it's 3.
I think with vitamin D, it's 4,000. But yeah, it does start to, there's always that old saying, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. The difference between medicine and poison is in the dose.
Hi, Charlie Brown. He's here. He's working, but he's listening. Thank you for joining us today.
And John H., hello.
John H.
And
Hi,
whoever
John.
else is there who's not feeling up to making comments or whatever. Lurkers and whatnot, people, that's not such a nice name. But whatever else you call them in a nice way. Introverts, that's the word.
Mastermind. All right, Mastermind's in the house. He said you can OD on D, but it's not fatal.
Unless you're old enough kind of thing or whatever, like, and it's like a health, like sometimes they prescribe you vitamin D for a certain kind of reason. So we always should be careful about medical advice, right? I don't know about that stuff. So
Well, I mean,
My mom actually has to take 10,000, I guess they say UI a day. That's a lot, but she's also older and
yeah, and if someone's gonna go off label recommendation, that's the doctor. I think.
Yeah, that's from the doctor. So don't go off what I'm saying. The doctor told her to do that. All right, Michael, I'll let you start, and let's
All
see
right.
what we're dealing with today.
So everyone has probably heard of by now that the U.S. Senate has passed the $95 billion bill, and it's all about whether or not it will get through the House of Representatives, and it's not quite looking so good for the Democrats. From the impression that I'm getting, it sounds like the House of Representatives is dominated by the Republicans, and they have all kinds of reasons to leverage for what they want to prevent the bill, delay the bill from passing until it's too late, to the point where it's a Pyrrhic victory if it does make it through. But then the problem is that what their Republicans are kind of what they're holding out over is the border issue, and they don't seem to be able to come up to some kind of compromise for some reason. Not American. I've never been to the U.S.-Mexico border, so probably not the right person to get a opinion about what's going on down there. But yeah, it does. They do. I think that I'm not too supportive of conservative mindset, but that line that they have that you gotta secure the border of the U.S. before you secure the borders of other countries. That's pretty strong narrative talking point. That's all I'm saying.
And Michael, I always wonder, like, there's so many military bases in Mexico, so all those places these people have to pass to get to the border. How is that? How are they even getting there without assistance? I just never believed that this isn't an orchestrated thing that our government is involved in. So,
And since we're talking about aid, and this is just a speculation on my part, whatever, how much you want to bet that some of this aid going to these other foreign countries ends up actually paying in some way, officially or unofficially, for people to immigrate here or to there, right? That's just a thought that just occurred to me, right? But because this aid is so many aid to so many countries for all kinds of reasons, it's not actually implausible to realize that you might be paying for your own migrant crisis in some way, as well as creating it through it with military, whatever. So anyway, let me get to this article here. The Senate early Tuesday passed an emergency spending package that would provide military aid to Ukraine and Israel, replenish U.S. weapons systems, and provide food, water, and other humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza. Which is the strange thing, right? In this $95 billion package, they're funding both sides in front of your face and making a point to fund Israel with like $4 billion more than Gaza. But anyway, the Senate jettisoned from the package a bipartisan effort to boost immigration enforcement at the U.S.-Mexico border after most Republican senators, following the lead of former President Donald Trump, deemed the bipartisan proposal inadequate. Abandoning the border proposal brought the price tag of the bill down to about $95.3 billion. So if you thought $95 billion wasn't high enough, it was a higher price tag before they created this filibuster problem, whatever, I don't know what you want to call it. Now that the Senate has approved the emergency spending package, it is up to the Republican-led House to take it up, change it, or let it die. Speaker Mike Johnson cast new doubt on the package in a statement Monday evening, making clear that it could be weeks or months before Congress sends the legislation to President Joe Biden's desk, if at all. So there's just a closer look at the spending breakdown, but I've got other slides that get into that, so I'll show you those ones. We got some.
So while you're
comment about that?
Well, the comment section is on fire. welcome all the new people who are coming in, Restless Native. But Mastermind says, let me pull it up for you. I'm just going to read it because it's not coming up. It says, $10 says the government will offer citizenship to, why is my thing going so slow? Can you see it, Michael?
Well, yeah, $10.
Basically
the
saying
government
he
will
bets $10 the government is going to offer citizenship. And
To the immigrants
Uh,
if they
I
join
don't-
the army.
there it is.
I'm not taking that bet. Someone else can
Okay.
take him up on that one.
I am gonna take that bet because if you don't mind, Michael, can I play something for you, because that has already been suggested on the floor of the Senate by Dick Durbin. So when he said that, I was like, oh, let me pull up the clip. So I'll pull it up in a little bit. It has to load, and
In the clip,
so I will definitely take you up on that bet because I could use an extra $10 in my pocket.
in the
Tolerance.
clip he's saying that
He specifically says it in the clip, yes.
that but what he
says
says is that
it will be
citizens will be
offered very
citizens, the immigrants or the
advantageous
refugees
for
will,
us.
sorry, cutting you off. But I was saying, I'm trying to clarify, is it that he said that they would offer them citizenship, or is he said that by no means that they would?
To offer them citizenship if they join the military.
Yeah, because they're having real bad recruitment issues.
He sure did.
Okay, well, if you're not having that video up, should I go to the article?
Okay, I have it. So
Hello,
you can read some
Rondo.
more of the chats.
Hello, Desert Mantis.
What is Tosmit saying? How can you feed and shelter everyone else while your house is falling apart from the inside? Very good question.
Need health care, not warfare.
Okay, so I have it. Let me cue it up for you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Stephen. Was that?
We need health care, not warfare.
Yeah. These slogans are, you can't, what they've been saying in Canada or whatever, you can't buy a house with a slogan kind of thing or whatever. But these slogans are not wrong or whatever. People should just listen to them. We should just fulfill them instead of acting like they're just words, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. You see my computer is just acting crazy.
Yeah, you're getting a bit
so let's
glitchy
see.
there. So
I'm trying to cue this. There we go. Yeah, I'm getting a little glitchy.
well, I just hope you haven't
Quite
frozen there.
unfortunate.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm sorry. I'm gonna find it later and later.
Okay. I just hope the audience doesn't mind having a little
So
bit
go
of
ahead.
patience.
Hey, Michael, you could take it away.
Okay. So I was just talking about how previously they had said that they had said that the bipartisan thing was inadequate, and then they're trying to get leverage and delaying the bill or whatever. But then this other article mentions how Republican lawmakers now want the border security deal that they turned down after reports that Donald Trump ordered the leadership. He didn't want another win under Joe Biden's presidential belt. Well, that's there's always usually more than one reason for these kinds of decisions, but they'll try and find one reason to pin everything on. But I thought it was definitely worth pointing out their incompetence or whatever nefariousness or whatever about how if they really wanted the border security, whatever, why'd they turn the deal down or whatever. And if they really, sometimes you got to recognize if you turn a deal down, you really shot yourself in the foot. You don't have the chance to accept it later on. And so then they're going to fight over this or whatever. It shows you how disorganized and ineffective the whole process is of acting like you can vote for one of the duopoly when all they do is squabble. So anyway, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is now calling on Speaker Mike Johnson to take up the Ukraine-Israel funding bill, but several GOP House members told Ross Story that they need border security in the bill. Last week, it was so toxic that Republican Senator James Lankford became a huge target on the right for helping to negotiate the legislation. It's obvious to me they don't want to do anything, said Frank Pallone. I mean, they had a great deal that included border security and all the funding for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, the humanitarian system, which most of the Republican senators were willing to support. Now they have 70 members, including a significant number of Republican senators who want to pass this package. The House GOP want to scuttle that. They wanted only Israel aid, and they couldn't pass that. It's just a do-nothing Republican leadership. He said they're simply following Trump's demands. I don't know if it's just simply following his demands, but that's what they want to try and have. Trump derangement syndrome. Everything's Trump's fault somehow. Other people don't have their own thoughts in their own heads, right? He says do nothing, so they do nothing, and they're willing to do nothing, said Pallone. Now, I don't know. It's actually embarrassing. It's dangerous. It's all of the above. It actually probably is all of those things, right? Which is the funniest thing. So I can't really tell if they're incompetent or if they're if they're doing all of this exactly as they intend to do or whatever, because it's just classic, it's so chaotic or whatever. I can't tell if it's on purpose or not, right? That's the point. You there, Stephen?
Yeah. Did you ask me a question?
No, I just noticed Abby had dropped out, so you're the person I had to throw it to. So
yeah, I'm I'm kind of just biding my time till I can talk. So let's get to it.
no worries. Yeah,
I agree with everything you say.
yeah. I'd be happy to with these articles I'm sharing from MSN. For some reason, I can't highlight them, so sometimes I forget a little bit what I was planning on saying by the time I actually get around to it. But I'm not necessarily was meant to hang up on those for too long, because I'm wanting to get in to show you the graphs of how much are people actually, the totals of Ukraine aid, whatever. Speaking of which, whatever, we could probably put that one up there. But I had another thing. I don't know if I want to show it because it's just an article. The headline is banks face further loan losses from global office market slump. So I wanted to remind people if they're talking about how good the economy is and how we're going to avoid a recession and everything, we got all the money in the world to send to all these other countries, whatever. Why are there headlines coming out on the same day talking about how the banks are kind of worried about this retail apocalypse of all these office buildings that are empty that people are not going to go back to because the switch to working from home kind of thing. So there's other things people forget about that are going to affect the economy that make what they're saying even more of a lie. So I'm going to skip that article, but I just mentioned it. So that's kind of covered it there. So, but U.S. aid to Ukraine. So we forget that when it's 95 billion package this time or whatever, you'd be forgiven for not being able to tell how much has been given so far. Like, I haven't been keeping track or whatever. It's just hundreds of billions at this point or whatever, right? So, but how much has the U.S. sent to Ukraine? Here are 6 charts. So I'm going to skip all this or whatever. I'm just going to go straight to this chart here. So just how much aid has the U.S. sent to Ukraine, bilateral aid to Ukraine between January 24th, 2022 and October 31st, 2023. So humanitarian, 2.7 billion, 4%. Emergency food assistance, healthcare, refugee support, and other humanitarian aid. I don't really know why that has to be so low or whatever. I feel like maybe it would be corruption if you added more or whatever, but like, I feel like there would be less problems if people felt like there was a need to give more humanitarian aid instead of more weapons, right? You would win the war by taking care of the people better. Then you just, like, giving people guns doesn't necessarily fix anything, right? Like, financial assistance, 35%, 26.4 billion. Budgetary aid through the economic support fund, loans, and other financial support. So this is basically propping up the economy, manipulating their currency and all that kind of stuff. And security assistance, 18.3 billion, 24%. Training, equipment, weapons, logistics, support, and other assistance provided through the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. And then weapons and equipment, 31%, 23.5 billion. Weapons and equipment from Defense Department stocks provided through presidential drawdowns. So the other thing that we always need to keep in mind, this is like America paying itself because they've signed a contract where they're going to provide these weapons and equipment, but this is providing a contract to their defense contractors. So by giving money, they make money. Isn't it nice how that works?
And they're giving them like our old weapons and using that money to build newer,
using that excuse.
Weapons in our coffer.
Because now that you don't have those old weapons, you need to invest in new ones, right? So
that's what they're doing.
More high tech. And then that financial aid one also includes pensions for the government, workers.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind too.
Which was an interesting
this chat
thing.
Is on fire, Michael.
Oh, nice. Should take a look.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we were.
Glitchy today. So we have some new people in the Desert Mantis is here. Hello. He tells me, careful, Abby, with the bet. Mastermind doesn't have any money. Well, he will definitely not have. It'll be $10 poorer because I'm taking it.
Well, isn't it worth owning all this debt?
I'm definitely taking it. And hello, Ron, as well. Yep. Tax money is incorrect. Public money. Let's show this one. Tax money is incorrect. Public money is a better descriptor. Taxes are deleted upon receipt by the federal government.
Yeah, when you say tax, it kind of gives the impression like it's money that the government already feels entitled to.
Yeah, so new money is created in every congressional spending legislation. That is accurate, yes. So thank you for pointing that out, Desert Mantis.
Shekel printer go burr.
We can always depend on Mastermind with his wit.
Well, John H or whatever is doing all right with this one or whatever, depending on what kind of humor or whatever. I'm not sure we should read that one out loud so much, but
but we see you.
Okay.
So Todd Smith says she meant America's using American tax money to filter, or we should say public money, to fix other countries' problems actual Americans have to live with. Where's the uproar? Yeah, where is the uproar? I feel like there's too much complacency. Like, why aren't we all in the streets?
Well, it's
We're
also
just so
there. Like there
numb
is all
to it.
kinds of uproar. It's just like you don't see it if it gets blocked out or whatever, and then the other thing is if people
Well,
do it, then it doesn't seem to have changed something, right? Like,
okay. A better way to say that is the collective uproar. Like, people are pissed in like this group over there, this group over there, people in the back, but collectively, there's still a lot of people with their what are those horse eye blockers? I don't know what the name of
blinders.
them are,
Yeah, I
but
got
they're
the
just like
blinders
looking
on.
straight ahead. Well, they're not blinders, but so horses can't see in their peripheral vision.
I thought that's
They
what they
can only
called
look
them.
straight ahead.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh, okay. Well, if they call them blinders, sure. I mean, not enough of us are looking in our peripheral vision to see the everything for what it really truly is. They're still looking straight ahead. So
I like that
I
because
don't
the
know.
way that
I
people have
don't.
been saying it to me is I've had this issue about people telling me I'm focusing too much on the big picture all the time, which is like saying I'm looking in my peripheral vision too much and I got to look at what's right in front of me. It's like I'm saying you guys are looking at the small picture way too much. You got to look at the big picture sometimes. So, but yeah, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we all could meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with just that for now.
Or keep your head
Mastermind
on a swivel.
our
How about that?
yeah. I like that a lot. Keep your head on a swivel. The
Yeah, it
IDF
says
stormed a kibbutz because they were told that Hamas was storing copper wire there, but it turned out just to be two Israelis fighting over a penny. Oh my
these are the kinds
gosh.
of jokes that'll get you in a bit of trouble sometimes, maybe.
Yeah. Remember Ilhan Omar when she said it's all about the Benjamins? What happened? Got to be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, blinders. Thanks, Mastermind. Tossman, we need to blend all of it. Yes, we do. Because everyone's being taken care of by the American government, but Americans. That's how it feels. That's what it's looking like. All right, you want to move on to your next?
Receiving money and being taken care of or whatever, it's not necessarily the same thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, we want to move on, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think next I was going to...
Stay Balanced has entered the chat.
Oh, nice. Welcome. I wanted to switch to how much funding is sent to Israel.
And this is past, right? This is
yeah, because this is in total U.S. aid to Israel in 4 charts instead of 6, because I guess you don't need so many for some reason for them. But I didn't even get in. I only think I got into one single chart on the other page because you could spend all day on this, and this is like Council of Foreign Relations stuff, so I'm not really trying to do their work for them. But the United States was the first country to recognize a provisional government of the State of Israel upon its founding. It's been for many decades a strong and steady supporter. How much aid does Israel receive? Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid since its founding, receiving about $300 billion, adjusted for inflation, in total economic and military assistance since the 1950 or 49, or I don't know. But the United States has also provided large foreign aid packages to other Middle Eastern countries, particularly Egypt and Iraq, but Israel stands apart. So there you can see the military is the red and the yellow is the economic. And there's Israel, 300 billion. The next closest is half that, a little over that, with Egypt right next door. So everyone wondering why isn't Egypt doing this? Why isn't Egypt doing that? Why is their hands tied behind their back? Well, it might have a little bit to do with bribery. So Afghanistan next, and then South Vietnam, Iraq, South Korea, United Kingdom, India, Turkey, and France. Those are the other people in that graph. Notes data for 2023 is partially reported. Aid to Israel.
Michael,
I just wanted.
Michael,
Sorry, yeah.
Michael, you're not sharing.
Oh, fuck.
Let's fix that. That's all right.
Here we go.
So while
Just
we're pulling that up, hey, Bad Cookies. Bad Cookies says, oh shit, it's Michael and Abby again. Haven't seen them in a grip. Well, we're glad you're here.
Welcome. Nice. Yeah, a little.
All right. So now that we see the graph, let's start over.
Yeah, kind of helps to see what I'm talking about. So there's the red,
a little bit,
and there's the yellow, right? The military and the economic. Military in red, economic in yellow. And it is interesting to see how India's got like 1 billion in military aid and 81 billion in economic aid. They get their military aid from Russia, I guess. And then Israel gets 3/4 of their aid is in military. So the other graph I thought worth showing there, U.S. military aid to Israel has been consistent since the 1970s. Aid by fiscal year, constant 2022 dollars. And I was reading this little caveat here. These are important if you really want to be really accurate, because sometimes like the number values are kind of, there's a little bit of a caveat to the value. So data for 2023 is partially reported. Aid to Israel includes missile defense starting in 2006. South Vietnam existed as a country until the end of the Vietnam War in 1975. So like there may be even more than that's not being included on the graph, basically, right? So U.S. military aid, consistent since the 1970s. So I don't really, if you knew the historical context, you'd be able to like look at the year and look at the peak, and you'd be able to understand exactly why that occurred when. But I'm not going to get into that now. I just wanted to what I found interesting when I looked at this graph was this slope down to here. Their economic aid stopped in the year 2008. Or it didn't quite stop, but that's when it really flatlined, and it really transitioned to military aid, like consistent military aid since like 1980 here. But this is like it doesn't, like earlier in the graph, it might look like there's only large lump sum payments or whatever, but this is a lot of money, right? And then this is also like a lot of money consistently paid out over the years. But what happened exactly with 2008 or whatever, that they don't feel the need to economically assist Israel or whatever. I've kind of looked into that a little bit, and I found Israel actually went through the 2008 financial crisis a lot better than the West did. They seem to have been kind of poised to be there for capital flight kind of thing, and like help the billionaires in the U.S. weather the storm until they could send their money back over or whatever. Speculation there. So the notes here, military aid includes missile defense starting in 2006. Data is adjusted for inflation in constant 2022 dollars. So prices are even more inflated now, except for the $14.3 billion new aid request, which is in current dollars. So why you would do that is kind of hard for me to, I don't know how to do the math to adjust for the inflation or whatever. Like, so that note is important or whatever, but this little dot up here is Biden administration's new aid request being considered by Congress. So the highest to date for them, right?
So I just wanted to address this because Todd Smith was saying, giving that money to the working poor Americans would make a big difference. And she says, it's not American pride to work 3 or more jobs. I don't know who started that bullshit. Now, I recall when George Bush, the son, was president, he was at a town hall or something. And this older lady was talking about, I think she had 3 jobs or something like that. And his response was like, I can't remember what he said, but it was like, oh, that's the American way, and isn't that lovely, and something. And the crowd claps. And it's just like, no, that's not lovely. The lady has to work 3 jobs to survive. Now, I don't know if he started that. Like, I'm too young to remember stuff Reagan would say because I wasn't focused on that at the time. I was in school, in grade school. But I imagine maybe Reagan might say something stupid like that too. I don't know. Stephen, do you?
Yeah, his thing was Nancy was the main driver there with just say no about war on drugs. Just say no.
Yeah, just say no.
That's what we had with 8 years of Reagan. Just say no. War on drugs, which meant war on the ghetto, of course.
Mm-hmm. War on urban area or urban areas, and pretty much basically war on Black people.
It's like taunting you. It's like taunting people too, because it's saying just say no while like taking away everything else or whatever, and giving them as the only option or whatever to take any kind of pain away or whatever. So.
Yeah, and just say no while being the drug dealer that's actually pushing it into the neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly.
That was so crazy. And then somehow that man, Oliver North, was able to make a comeback after the Iran-Contra scandal. And he had his own show on Fox News. Yeah. And it's like,
W. Bush did come back. Yeah.
Say again? Bush is making a comeback. Big
comeback. Mainly because he's not as bad. They say he's not as bad as Trump, so that makes him a hero.
And a lot of that has to do with Michelle Obama, which is disgusting. So we have a new person in the chat. Egregores, kill your egregores. Welcome. Egregious.
That's a word everyone struggles with.
I was like,
egregious.
You're egregious.
When something really bad happens, you say that's egregious.
Yes, you're right. That's the word I know. Egregious. George W. telling that old 79-year-old how American it was that she's still working. So out of touch, so disturbing and disgusting. Yes, I wanted to pull out the guillotine right at that moment. Like, how dare you? How dare you? And let's back to back. Let's see. Ollie North, to the best of my knowledge, I can't recall. Yeah, Oliver North, that was his name. And we're getting a correction here. Egregores. Ancient term for groupthink. Oh, okay. I'm going to have to Google that. Let me write that down.
Yeah, it's interesting or whatever. I look up the origin of words or whatever, and then I looked up that one a while ago, and it's like it's got something to do with not from the flock or whatever is like what it technically originally meant. So I might have gotten that
which
slightly
makes sense.
wrong,
yeah, I mean that.
But then when you take it literally, then it's like kill what's not from your flock is what it means. Sorry.
I see what you mean. Kill the not from your flock, right? It
does not meant to be like that at all. That's how words change over time. You can turn it into something that doesn't mean anymore. So
Yeah, we're just going. Well, we do that, Michael. We get too all in the weeds of things. I love going down the internet wormhole. So,
Hmm.
Mastermind says there's one big thriving reason Michelle won't run for president, and it ain't.
Suggestive
He's so bad.
humor there.
It ain't misogyny. You're bad, Mastermind. You're really bad. And what's interesting is we were just discussing this before we started the live stream, like how the D has gotten themselves caught up between a rock and a hard place with Biden and his mental faculties. And Stephen suggested that they might run Gavin Newsom, and I was like, they cannot do that. That's my opinion, because it's going to look really bad to their flock, the women and the people of color, if you put a white man in charge over Kamala Harris. That I don't think that's going to fly very well at all. And I suggested that the only person they could probably actually go with would be Michelle Obama. A Obama Harris ticket. So I don't know. I can't wait to see what they're going to do, because they are stuck, and I find it quite hilarious.
Well, it seems like they're leading us to believe like what's supposed to happen is it's just going to be Biden, and we're like, as incredible as that is to believe, whatever. Apparently, we're supposed to bite the hook and line and sinker, whatever, that Biden's fit to run. Don't worry, everyone's saying he's gone crazy, he's got Alzheimer's or whatever, but the doctors say it's okay. We've given him magic pills, right? He's fine. All right, if you say so.
Desert Manta says Putin on Biden's cognitive decline. So what if he whacked his head coming out of a helicopter? Who among us hasn't hit our head on a helicopter? I am not a doctor.
Yeah, I also heard he said he would prefer Biden
Master
instead of Trump.
Oh, Putin?
He said Putin would prefer Biden as president instead of Trump. Yeah. And I think he said something along the lines of Trump's more of a loose cannon and Biden's more of like a traditional statesman type or whatever. I think that's what he's saying for the face of it. But what he really means is, as a politician, as an adversary, you would rather the more incompetent fool in charge. So he's signaling to anyone who's hearing the dog whistle, vote for Biden, whatever. It's much better for me. But
actually, I do remember that. Yes, he did say that. It was, that whole interview was so hilarious. Oh my gosh. I just cackled the whole, I gave a Kamala cackle. So let's go. So we can go ahead and move on. I think we got through all of the new chats.
Newsom and Harris are both from California. It's illegal for them to run together.
Oh, okay. Is that illegal? I did not know that. So I have to go down the wormhole on that one as well.
It's the good things to. They always tell you things like they do things that they should know are impossible. So it's interesting. As I'm happy for people to point these things out. Like it reminds me of Cenk Uygur running when he's a foreign citizen, kind of whatever, you're not allowed to. He knows that, and he's going to do the running anyway. So these are the ways that you can figure out. You can kind of do inside baseball, people call it, whatever. Figure out what really will happen based on what can't happen. So.
And they always change the rules when they want to. So unless it's like something in the Constitution, I don't know if that would even hold up. If that's what they really wanted.
Yeah, I don't know if we're getting too
right, because
off on a tangent.
Change the rules nobody had ever. We're
having trouble. We're cutting each other off a lot because of lag. But I just know I see Steven down there. You're doing okay, or
Yeah, I'm. I've got that cold. Sorry. I'm just kind of a lump today.
yeah. Well, we're trying to
All
remember that
right.
we can't be going on too late today. So
Okay, Michael, you have any
yeah.
more for us?
Yeah, let me just let me move to what I maybe should have tried to talk to this before we went to comments or whatever, because I kind of would have been better to tie it in with what I was saying before or whatever. But there was a massive surge in the buying of Israel bonds from the United States. This is from November 8th, 2023. $1 billion in Israel bonds have been purchased in the United States since October 7th. States, cities, and small investors are behind the spike in sales. Our security and economy will come out stronger, said Israel Bond CEO. The Ministry of Finance issued new bonds in the days immediately following the attack. The $1 billion raised in the last 4 weeks is the largest amount of Israeli bonds ever purchased in a short period, according to the Development Corporation, the agency behind Israel bond sales. It also makes 2023 a record year for Israel bonds. According to a statement from the organization, most of the money came from 15 state and municipal bond funds, as well as a few banks. The main buyers were state governments in Florida, New York, Alabama, Arizona, Ohio, Illinois, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Nevada, Louisiana, South Carolina, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. Two banks made notable buys, New Jersey-based Cross River Bank and Cleveland-based Key Bank, which made a $15 million bond purchase. A spokesperson for the bank called the sales part of a more than 35-year relationship with Israel bonds. So you see American banks, states, and municipal governments are betting on the war. Isn't that nice? So before the war, the Development Corporation for Israel had already matched its sales goal for 2023 of $1 billion by the end of September. But the surge in the days and weeks after the war has doubled the 2023 goal. Total sales have now eclipsed the $2 billion mark. In a statement, New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli said, New York State's pension fund buys Israel bonds because we have confidence in the spirit of innovation and tenacity of Israeli people and in the strength of our investments there. So, yeah, is anyone like else completely sickened and disgusted, like to their gut, with how they're sending all this the military aid and everything while also buying Israeli bonds, knowing that the aid that they're sending is going to inflate the currency of the shekel and make the bonds that they're buying more valuable? So it's like complete financial, it would be financial fraud, except that because it's a war, it's justified. Do I get that right?
It's a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A total scam, and it's also helping to prop up our GDP to make it look like we're doing better than what we are doing. So they can, there's a lot of government spending, and that's considered investment. I mean, but ultimately they are investing in war, but it is considered a investment, which helps to prop up our GDP. And we're not doing as well as it looks on paper.
Yeah. But when you say we're in a recession and they say, no, we're not, look, the GDP says we're not, because the weapons contractors are really wealthy right now. So clearly you're not in a recession. So,
yeah. Have you seen Wall Street? We're doing great. But the average person doesn't own stocks and things like that from Wall Street. That is a rich man's game.
Yeah. And we can get into more, like I got a whole bunch of stuff, whatever. But basically there's a debt crisis, like a global debt crisis kind of thing. And what's not really, kind of gets like into financial stuff that's a little bit complicated even for me to be able to understand, to relay to everyone else, whatever. But basically the U.S. is gone from a net creditor to a net debtor. And this has everything to do with what they've tried to do to shore up their strength of their dollar. And by doing so, they've also, whether they like it or not, they've improved the investments of foreigners in the US because their investments are in American dollars. So they help their enemies by propping up their own dollar, kind of thing. And there's only so much that they can pull these little levers to get what they want, because other people around the world understand these levers as well as they do. So every time they try to do something that they think is going to work for them, it benefits other people they don't want it to benefit. So how long can that go on?
I know, because we must not forget that the petrodollar is waning.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. So you want to go to Stephen? He had a little bit of a excerpt from Whitney Webb's book.
Yeah. And last time or the first time I was on the show last week, I mentioned, about the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and how their goals mirror those of the Illuminati. And I was talking with, I don't know, I think one of you guys after the show last week, and I was mentioning Cat Williams and the controversy in Hollywood, how he really seems to be calling out all these Hollywood bigwigs for grooming some of these younger black stars. And I don't want to get into the nitty gritty there, but the point I was trying to make, he was talking about how he and 50 Cent were invited to join the Illuminati. And he just talks about it. It's not like, it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, you're really talking about the Mason. No, he says the Illuminati invited me and 50 Cent to join, and 50 Cent went for it and I didn't. He just kind of mentioned that in passing. So, like when I talk about the Illuminati, it's based on like Wikipedia.
You're referring to Ludacris. Yeah, Ludacris, not 50 Cent.
Yeah, that's something that let's see, who was it? The guy, that Myron Fagan's 1967 article about the Illuminati and the Council of Foreign Relations. And he was kind of taken apart the Adam Weishaupt's take on the age-old Illuminati, like from thousands of years ago. But it was 1776 when Adam Weishaupt said that the plan was to form a one world government. And that's when I went into the New World Order thing on the dollar bill that I talked about last week, and the Annuit Coeptus slogan on there. God favors our undertakings. It's kind of interesting choice of words. I mean, like typically an undertaker is somebody who takes you underground once you're dead. So God favors our undertakings. Maybe that has a hidden meaning. But the Myron Fagan article talked about Adam Weishaupt's plan to form a one world government controlled by bankers and religious institutions that would foment wars everywhere. Weishaupt was tasked with revising and modernizing the age-old protocols of Zionism. So that blends right into our talk today about Israel. And The Protocols of Zionism was designed for imposing the Luciferian ideology on what would remain the human race after the final social cataclysm by use of satanic despotism. So the old plan required the destruction of all existing governments and religions. That objective was to be reached by dividing the masses of the people, the masses into opposing camps based on political, social, economic, and cultural issues. The opposing sides were then to be armed and incidents provided, which would cause them to fight and weaken themselves and gradually destroy national governments and religious institutions. But then came the protocols of the learned elders of Zion to confuse matters even more, written in the style of the protocols of Zionism, but it's a more recent version written by Russian propagandizers to disseminate anti Jewish ideology. It's a work of fiction written to blame Jews for a variety of ills, including the Black Death and the Russian Revolution. Those who distribute it claim that it documents a Jewish conspiracy to dominate the world, but it's a fraud meant to mask the Zionist scheme. These are the people behind it. All this crap that's going on. The Zionist scheme for world domination by blaming the Jews. So I mean, where you see it almost every day. The Jews are the problems. They're doing the genocide, but it's the Zionist scheme. If their scheme was discovered, the plan was to wipe out all Jews to divert suspicions from themselves. So that's where the false flag comes in, and that had me springboarding onto Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail. Chapter 3 is Organized Crime and the State of Israel. In its July 1971 obituary for Samuel Bronfman, the New York Times wrote that after World War II, the liquor baron had helped finance a secret purchase of Canadian weapons for troops of the Haganah. Additional details on Bronfman's role in that purchase beyond its brief mention in the Times are rather difficult to come by. But you do have that Sam Bronfman personally underwrote life insurance policies for Canadian pilots recruited to help Israel fight its 1948 War of Independence. However, it's also known a few years after Israel's creation, in 1951, Bronfman would play a leading role in a similar secret purchase for the Haganah's successor, the Israel Defense Force, IDF. In that case, Bronfman specifically answered the call of Israel's Shimon Peres, taking Peres to Ottawa, Canada, to negotiate the transfer $2 million worth of weapons to Israel. Bronfman then raised funds to cover the entire cost of the sizable arms cache. Yet, aside from that, little is known of the earliest role in arming Zionist paramilitaries prior to Israel's founding. We have almost everybody very tight-lipped on Zionist matters. People don't like to talk about it, and most of what Whitney writes is are testimonies from other people talking about these people. And if she gets 2 or 3 people to confirm these matters, then she prints it. But Bronfman's head of the Canadian Jewish Congress, an example of the family's characteristic quiet manipulation, regardless of the exact nature of his activities in this area, his connection to Haganah was not unique for those in his social circles. Yet, even outside of his contacts, efforts to aid the Zionist paramilitary group, which would later form the backbone of the IDF, were already indicative of a wider tendency in pro Zionist activism that swept across Canada, America, Latin America, and beyond in the late 1940s. What was at stake was the creation of Israel itself as a sovereign political entity independent of the British, who until 1948 had controlled mandatory Palestine. And I had to kind of look that up. Mandatory, what was mandatory about it? Well, mandatory Palestine existed between 1920 and 1948 under the terms of the League of Nations. The UK and France divided the Ottoman Syrian Empire with the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Then the Balfour Declaration had the Brits promise to support for an Israeli, for an establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. Mandatory Palestine was going to be the establishment in 1920, and the Brits obtained a mandate for Palestine. That's where mandatory comes from, a mandate for Palestine to become a Jewish national home from the League of Nations in 1922. But in accordance with treaties set up at the end of World War I, the British mandate ended in 1958, but the Zionists were already going ahead with their plans. Israel declared itself independent, immediately entered into the conflict with the Palestinians and a coalition of Arab forces. Those fighting to create Israel were able to assert themselves so forcefully, largely because of the careful groundwork that had been laid out in advance by a number of individuals and groups, many of them working in the shadows. Such was the historical mission of the Haganah defense. It means defense in Israeli. An organization, an organized Zionist paramilitary network that had been set up by the Jewish Agency, an activist branch of the World Zionist Organization, WZO. The Jewish Agency, under the leadership of David Ben-Gurion, oversaw the creation of numerous towns, villages, communal outposts, and defense groups in mandatory Palestine. The Jewish Agency would later atrophy, only to be relaunched by one of Leslie Wexner's mentors, Max Fisher, in 1970. Now, Leslie Wexner is mentioned probably hundreds of times in Whitney's two-volume masterpiece. Basically, he was organized crime, rich guy who helped to finance Jeffrey Epstein. But the formation of Haganah in 1920 was a major step towards the formation of the Israeli state. Vital to its functioning was the training and arms provided by the British military. Major General Lord Charles Wingate, who had been dispatched to help administer British control over the territories, worked closely with them. Wingate even organized joint British Army Zionist paramilitary commando units dedicated to patrolling and suppressing Arab elements in the region. These were called Special Night Squads. In 1945, the Haganah began its efforts to stockpile weapons, ammunition, aircraft, non-lethal supplies, and machine tools sourced from around the globe. In the U.S., Ben-Gurion reached out to a close associate, Zion activist Rudolf Sonnenborn, who had traveled to Palestine years earlier to survey construction of Jewish villages on behalf of the World Zionist Organization. Under the leadership of Sonneborn, 18 or so Jewish millionaires and billionaires were recruited into bankrolling the supply efforts. Thus, the Sonneborn Institute, as it was known, was born. The Institute, an activist collaboration of Zionist millionaires and billionaires that pursued specific Zionism-related causes, would later serve as a sort of model for the Mega Group, founded years later by Leslie Wexner and Charles Bronfman, 1991. The Sonneborn Institute's chief asset was an operative named Yehudi Arazi. During World War II, he served as a soldier in the Jewish Brigade, a British Army unit from the immigrant populations living in Mandatory Palestine. 1945, he was an old hand at gun running. Indeed, Arazi had been actively smuggling arms for Haganah into Palestine from Europe since 1938. Through these efforts, he developed an impressive roster of contacts, many of whom were tapped to set up front companies through which the Sonneborn Institute and Haganah could carry out their activities. Ricky, this historian, writes about it. There were other front companies. There were a trio of interlaced companies that had another person that's mentioned in the 2-volume book many times, Paul Hellawell. And she doesn't mention him. She's just discussed in chapter 1, but I had to go back and just get a sentence about him. He was a shadow banking strategist. He came up with a lot of these bank scams that bilked customers. And he was a primary node between the worlds of intelligence, U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence, and organized crime. So that's kind of where her book, the subtitle is The Sordid Union Between Intelligence and Organized Crime that Gave Rise to Jeffrey Epstein. And so this is just events that led up to the creation of Israel. And when you put that together with some of the Illuminati goals about blaming Israel for all the world's woes so that it diverts attention away from themselves, it all starts to make sense. It doesn't really sound like a crazy conspiracy theory. And because every time I use that, I have to mention that it was Alan Dulles that first coined the term conspiracy theory in reference to the JFK assassination.
You're saying,
I went on, but I kind of would like to just break it off because I don't feel that good, and I would like to kind of pick up on this later on because of the events in Israel since 1948 have done nothing except prove that it's a Zionist plot to control world events, not really a Jewish state to just wipe out Palestinians. It's not just that. It's a big front that's been in operation for many decades, since the 30s, and even before that, when you talk about the protocols of Zionism and the Illuminati.
so, and you're saying like it's not maybe so much of a stretch to consider that when we're talking about Zionists and the Illuminati, we're talking about the same people. And then when we're talking about the WEF, we're talking about the same people. So I knew you were going to talk a bit about the Illuminati stuff. So then I had come across this. I I was looking for tools to fight like the global money laundering and corruption or whatever. And then, of course, the World Economic Forum always crops up or whatever. They got this. I was sharing it there. Sorry. They got this web page, Asset Recovery, a powerful tool in the fight against global corruption, which is, of course, exactly right. Like, that's what you want. If they're going to be sending taxpayers money and they're going to put in a corrupt black hole in Ukraine or Israel, you want to get asset recovery to somehow get that stuff back if it's possible. But are you going to trust the WEF to recover your assets, because they're the ones stealing your assets? So yeah, I wasn't really needing to get into that. Just wanted to quickly point them out, right?
Well, there's like a million tentacles that come out of this Zionist plot, and what's happening? Genocide in Gaza is really, 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 really important. But when you think about it, as the Zionists have a plan to just blame the Jews for all of this as a way of deflecting criticism and attention to themselves, it starts to make sense. These Zionists are out to, like I said about John Mersheimer, maximize their position. And the only way to do it is to make yourself so strong that nobody can mess with you.
Yeah. Who knows, right? I mean,
Well,
this is the thing. That's why it's so easy to get called a conspiracy theorist, because this is probably should be technically termed speculation, a lot of this, because we don't have actual concrete proof. Even Whitney Webb does a lot of good work or whatever, trying to get the actual concrete proof, the evidence there, and there's not, like, they do a pretty good job of making the laws in such a way and that they don't have to have the proof available or whatever. They are allowed to destroy evidence and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you talk about
So my
Illuminati and the protocols of Zionism that goes back thousands of years, and then you talk about the Zionists that helped create Israel, and that they're using all this propaganda and warfare and corruption to deflect criticism and notice on themselves, that fits. I mean, that would be a plausible explanation for what's going on now.
Yeah. Abby, you got something?
I mean, I've just listened to what he's saying, and my thought about a really good example of them being intertwined would be like Jon Stewart. So after he kind of fell from grace because of what he was saying about COVID, he kind of fell off, and then it took him coming back to put an award on a Nazi for him to be now back in the club. And now he's back on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And not only is he back, he is like having people on the show. Like, he had some lady from The Economist on the show who was making the case for why we should be in Ukraine, and why we should support the war in Ukraine. And I'm just like, what happened to you, John?
They got to him.
So yeah, so that would be my example of how they're intertwined.
Same thing happened to Michael Moore when he put out that movie, Planet of the Humans. He was excoriated by the left. I mean, Elizabeth Warren and a lot of these environmentalists just opened up the guns on him and totally discredited him. And he had to come back and kind of like, well, I'm sorry I said bad things about Bill McKibben and 350.org. I know they're doing their best and they really aren't scumbag sellouts like I tried to say, but Yeah, you really can't. If you want to sit at the cool kids table at lunchtime in the cafeteria, the school cafeteria, you can't be bucking the system.
Michael Moore also went on, I don't remember whose show, but it was just brutal to watch. He was basically trying to convince everybody why they should vote for Joe Biden,
Yeah,
and
that was
like
he was
his argument was,
doing
well, he's
penance.
Catholic and I'm Catholic, so I know. Yeah, like he's Catholic and I'm Catholic, so I know that he's a good person. He's really for the people because he can't be Catholic otherwise. And I'm like, what? That made no sense.
They
Have you
were
seen
trying to
it?
cancel him. You were trying to no more books, no more movies, no more TV interviews. Michael, you're out of here unless you suck up to the system and say you're sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some who aren't necessarily having to say they're sorry to get back in the fold. There's like, I don't know about Taylor Swift being like a Illuminati or Freemason, whatever, but I feel like she's in on some kind of thing. You know, there's a story, they're making a joke about how Taylor Swift couldn't possibly, like, there's a conspiracy that she's got some influence over the presidency or whatever. And this is where I'm saying, like, we like to make a big joke about that being impossible, whatever, but not like she's the one making shots or whatever, but like there's a little bit of a like the Illuminati people get the celebrities to do things like Super Bowl shows or whatever to get all kinds of people voting for the wrong people or whatever, and then for you to point out that maybe this rich billionaire whatever has a stake in this political stuff, even though she looks like an airhead. Well, I guess I must be crazy or whatever to point that out, right? Like,
No, it's like there were four ways that the Weishaupt saw to accomplish his plans, and this is bribery and blackmail, like Whitney Webb talks about. The colleges and universities to recruit the students with exceptional mental abilities from well-bred families with international leanings and recommend them for scholarships and get them into behind the scenes experts into government advisors, lobbyists, influencers, and then to control the press through Hollywood and money. And then Whitney Webb, her latest thing is the central bank digital currency, the CBDC plan to do away with cash. Everybody will own nothing and be happy. We'll live in these smart cities. We won't need cars. Just have public transportation. You won't never have to go more than 15 minutes from home. Oh, and then you get to travel. They're going to bring around these virtual reality goggles so that you can travel anywhere in the world, like the rich people.
I already do that with my TV. Thank you very much.
Oh, really?
Oh,
So
well,
are we?
shall we go? Shall we talk about this $95 billion bill? I'm tired, and I know everybody's tired and sick, but I did want to show, like, really quickly. I skimmed through the bill so you guys wouldn't have to. And I mean, I could show you, or let me see if I could share, because my internet seems a little wonky today. So let's see if it works. If it slows me down, then I'll just have to talk.
Yeah. Well, we can't always predict what's going to happen, but we do what we can. So. I wasn't
Okay.
sure if you had any videos to close out with either or not.
Yeah, I could play a video, I guess, to close out, but I wanted to show the actual bill. They are so bad in the comments.
Well, if you don't want,
Okay.
these bad jokes pointed at you, maybe you gotta do a little bit better at living up to your whatever grandiose lifestyle that you claim to be trying to
That's
live.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what is in this bill? It has to be passed by the House, but okay. Every military personnel gets a piece, gets a chunk. So that's the Marine Corps, the Air Force. They even have Space Force getting money. And I'm like, wait, what? Is this a joke?
Yeah.
No,
We
Space
need people
Force
to
is getting about $4 million.
imagine if nobody took the time to look
Yep.
into this or whatever,
And it just
right?
goes.
You would not know that there's money for Space
Mhm.
Force in there. I guess maybe a satellite makes sense
Right.
for military purposes.
And this part is just for personnel. Then it goes into operations and maintenance. So that's when you get to the big bucks, the billions for each individual area of the military. So I'm just going to skip that, but you can see Marines, Army. They go through Air Force. There, let's see if Space Force. Yep, Space Force gets about 8 million. They're not getting as much. So there's more billions trickling in.
Well,
Let me
maybe
keep
there's not quite as
going.
bad of corruption. You remember they were having like the Pentagon was selling like office chairs and garbage bins for like tens of thousands of dollars, and I wonder how much of that's going on in this bill, right?
Plenty.
Yeah.
Well, Mastermind says that they just launched 4 satellites on SpaceX. So I got to look into that. So I'm dropping down to page 24. So there's 98. So okay, it's for an additional amount for science, and it's in quotes like, yeah. Let's see. Oh, atomic energy, and what really caught my eye is there's some money in there for Lu and Hu, which is uranium, 2 different types of uranium that are necessary to build nuclear
Nuclear weapons.
warheads and such. So
Oh,
nuclear weapons, yep. So that's on page 28 and 29 and such. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then here, the Federal Emergency Management, they are allocating a bunch of money to page behind. Oh, I'm not on the right page. Grant money, which I saw that in yours as well. So they're oftentimes putting grant money in these for nonprofits to use so they can provide for emergency care or what have you. So basically, Red Cross, Red Cross really doesn't help anybody, but they're going to get some of this money. I mean, like, and do what? Build like 6 houses, 6 shacks, like they did in Haiti. So I thought that was very interesting. There, because it's the specific hand-picked nonprofits that are going to qualify for all of this money. So it's like one hand washes the other type of deal. So I found that to be particularly disgusting. And I didn't even get through the entire thing. They have money in here for diplomatic programs, so it's basically money to give other countries, surrounding area countries, I guess, so they could, shut up and let us do whatever we want to do. Here's a little aid. Now, be quiet and keep it moving type of deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in here for refugee assistance. And I mean, it's in two separate parts. One is like refugee assistance. That's on, I think that's on this page. Yeah, refugee assistance. Huge amount for that. And then I went down. They start talking about other stuff. And I went down to page 39, and there's another chunk of money. Is it chunk? Here we go. So this another chunk of money for migration and refugee assistance. So I thought that was interesting because the money is split up into two different blocks. One just for, I guess, refugees in other areas that didn't necessarily come to America, and the other ones for those who are migrating.
Yeah.
And then there's some money for economic support, the economic support fund. So this is like the paying for the pensions for the officials in Ukraine, paying to build up their economy, to prop them up so they don't fail.
One thing I meant to mention when I was talking about the Ukraine funding was they seem to have put in a stipulation that was making clear that the money was not meant to go towards Ukrainian pensions of some sort. But then when I was reading about the American bond buying of Israel, there was the New York State pensioners that they're buying the bonds for. So it's like they've got special rules for Israel that no one else is allowed to have. There's also a special rule. The U.S. has extended loan guarantees, a form of indirect assistance to Israel. They enable Israel to borrow from commercial U.S. banks at lower rates than everyone else. How's that fair? Mm-hmm. So those rate hikes, right? That everyone's bitching and moaning about, when's that rate hike coming down, wherever, to the level that the Israelis are paying? Like, anyway.
Mm-hmm. And I stopped at page 39. It still goes on and on to 82. I just didn't have enough time. So I'm sure there's way more egregious stuff in here for the egregores. See how I did that? And I just thought this article is interesting because it's obvious. So let's see if it loads. Gosh, my computer is slow. Okay. Experts say billions in U.S. Senate bill would be better spent at home. Thanks, Captain Obvious. Like, I could have told you that. I'm not an expert. I mean, that's pretty much common sense. So while President Joe Biden says bill will stimulate the economy, experts say social spending provides a bigger boost. Yeah, so this bill is going to stimulate our economy, spending all this money outside of our economy. And I think the only way it would stimulate our economy is just on paper, like we just that trickle down to anyone.
You're breaking up a bit. Can't quite catch what you're saying.
I'm definitely breaking up.
And we on the video.
There. Now she dropped out entirely. Well, hopefully she'll be able to come back shortly there, and she'll be a little smoother when she comes back. But couldn't seem to get across to her that she's getting glitchy, though. So I got a little positive uplift video we can play in the meantime. I was saving it for if we're going to close out with it if we need be, but I think Abby said she had something else. So since we're waiting for a moment, might as well. It just says, I don't know if you can read that. It's kind of hard to read. It says, even after an invasion in Rafah last night, the beautiful people of Gaza find a way to bring the kids joy.
Some resilient people.
Yep. If it weren't, like, if we had no idea what was going on in the background, literally right behind them, if you go far enough out to see the ruined wreckage or whatever, you would not have any clue that what they're going through, some of what they're going through, right? They seem to be weathering it better than I ever thought I would. So if I were them, right? Welcome back, Abby.
Hi, I don't even know what you heard. I had to stop sharing because I don't think it's going to work. I don't
We didn't hear
play a video today. You didn't hear much. Okay, I wanted to just say to all the viewership and to all our fellow comrades to put out some positive energy for JB, who has found himself in the hospital as of late. So we just want to make sure we're uplifting him in our thoughts. So that's what I was saying. And I can't play a video because I think it's gonna cut me out. So
Oh, well, yeah.
I'll let you take care of that if you have something you want to play.
That's fine. I had just played something to pass the moment for you to get back or whatever. And then I thought if you had a video, you'd be able to share. But I could have thought another step ahead, and I would have come to the conclusion that you just did, that maybe you would have a hard time sharing something if you're dropping out like that. I can quickly take a look to see. Yeah, I can close out with it. I got another video here too.
They are having a good time in the chat. A lot of jokes going back and forth. I was cracking up. I am, and I am not feeling very well. I'm feeling like warm under my chin, so I think I should go lay down.
Yeah, no, that's inflammation. You got to take care.
Okay, well then, yeah, we can say our goodbyes, do our any announcements or anything like that, or and then we can. I got this.
Yep. So as always, check out Stay Balanced and Charlie Brown Politics on Sundays at 8 Central. Beyond the Art Politics is the name of their show. Shout out to CJ for the Revolutionary Blackout Network Long Beach chapter. And there's another show, Social Contract. Social Contract is on Wednesdays at 11, I think. And this Sunday, Mastermind will be on Beyond the Arc. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So Break a Leg Mastermind.
Yeah, I like
your be there.
We got some interesting new profile pictures you've been coming up with.
Oh, Myra Page is here. I think. Yeah. Hi, Myra Page. Good to see you again.
Just stepped in the door just at the end. You might have to rewind if you like. Catch back up.
All one same. Good to see you again. But yeah, we're about to close out, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Hopefully, we'll all be feeling a whole lot better and be back to our normal selves.
I think so. Just got to stay positive, right? Don't stress. Take care of yourself. As long as you got that little bit you need to take care of those things you need to. And don't let the rest get to you. It's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Right. Easier said than done.
All right. Well, have a good night, everyone.
Okay.
See you next time.
Okay, guys. Peace out.
6-year-old girl who was found dead at the weekend. 6-year-old girl who was found dead at the weekend, Hind Rajab, and she was in a car with her family. They were fleeing Gaza City, and she was on the phone. She was the last surviving member of her family in the car. She was on the phone to emergency services. The Red Crescent sent an ambulance out to her. At the weekend, that girl was found dead in the car, as were the paramedics. Does that constitute a war crime?
I heard about this tragic case. I don't know what exactly happened there. But we've seen how Hamas take over ambulances. We've seen how they embed themselves in the hospital.
So is it okay to strike an ambulance then if that's what happened?
Well, according to international law, when on that ambulance there are terrorists, or if they're on the way to perform an attack, again.
Well, they were on the way to rescue the 6-year-old girl.
We don't have all the information. And what I
recorded in a conversation.
Again, we don't know all of the information. What I ask you, I understand the criticism against Israel. I acknowledge that. But every time you criticize Israel, ask, why are we in this situation? This tragic war, this tragic reality that the people in Gaza are living under. Why are they living like this? Who is responsible for that? The infrastructure of the terror tunnels underneath Gaza. I don't hear a lot of coverage for that here, but we need to talk about it.